Today was really illuminating because what I found, what I have seen, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, is that the internet response to the news that an unidentified man shot and killed UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson, who is the CEO of the largest healthcare company in this country, that also denies care to millions of people every year, that he was killed in Manhattan. And usually what happens when a public figure, somebody of note, is killed is that I bet he was a crazy leftist, or I'm sure this guy supported Trump. Like, the political accusations begin. But in this case, people have collectively come together to say, I don't give a fuck, ranging from like, I don't give a fuck about this CEO being killed because my father was denied coverage for his cancer treatment last year and died in extreme pain thanks to UnitedHealthcare. Ranging from that, like, I don't give a fuck about this CEO's death, to I hope the other CEOs are quaking in fear. Reminds me of when Shinzo Abe was assassinated. The Japanese people were like, yeah. And so we're going to talk about why. We're going to talk about why the response to the fatal shooting of this CEO healthcare, the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, has been overwhelmingly fuck CEOs, fuck the healthcare industry. I will not shed a tear for this. Like, here's just one example, okay? Saw mainstream news coverage about the killing of the CEO of UnitedHealthcare on TikTok, and I think political and industry leaders might want to read the comments and think hard about them. I'm sorry, prior authorization is required for thoughts and prayers. Sending prior authorization denied claims, collections, and prayers to his family. Was his trip to the ER really emergent? According to his own company, my husband's heart attack wasn't an actual emergency, and we were out $3,000, full deductible. It's crazy what my first thought was, and then I look at the comments and realize I'm not alone. I just can't find the care. Maybe if they ask for pre-approval of my care, then after they care their required deductible, I might be able to supplement some care. I can't even pretend to care. I hope he's looking up at us. And if you Google Brian Thompson's name, or sorry, not Google, Jesus, I'm like 100 years old. If you look on Twitter, it's like every single tweet is on the same page. Today we mourn the death of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson, gunned down. Wait, I'm sorry. Today we mourn the deaths of the 68,000 Americans who needlessly die each year so that insurance company execs like Brian Thompson can become multimillionaires. Sorry, but Brian Thompson's murder took place out of network, so I'm going to have to deny your claim for me giving a fuck. Brian Thompson was human and had a wife and kids. Yeah, so were the people that he denied coverage to that died. UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson died doing what he loved, increasing shareholder value. We'll never know just how many people Brian Thompson killed, but that is the system operating as intended. I mean, it's just like tweet after tweet after tweet. Brian Thompson killed more U.S. citizens than every serial killer combined, but because he made money off it, the media considered him a successful businessman and morally upstanding citizen. So let's watch this quick little CNN clip to see what happened. And what I want to remind us, that this isn't about an individual, okay? And obviously the whole like, well, he had a family, blah, blah. This is about this person who is representative, who has made millions of dollars off of the death of Americans. and works in an industry, works for the largest healthcare company in this country that is responsible for Americans dying because they are denied the right to healthcare, that this is representative. And what you are seeing are people in this country, no matter what their politics are, who are very fucking angry that the healthcare system is a for-profit system, that it puts profit over people, and it is working as intended. That UnitedHealthcare made $22 billion in profit last year. That Brian Thompson made $10 million last year from his bonus, his salary, and his, gains from his stock options. This is a man in an industry that makes billions of dollars off of denying people care, off of making sure that people, when they get sick, that they stay sick and then die. It is profiting off of death. And it is supported by their allies in Congress. It is supported by other members of the ruling class. It is supported by people in mainstream media whose job it is to uphold these power structures. So here they're going to spend all this time and have all this sympathy for a CEO who was murdered, and none for the millions of Americans who are uninsured, the millions more who pay for health insurance, who pay into a system and are still fucking uninsured, and for the 70,000 who die every year because healthcare is not a human right in this fucking country. And so let's not forget that at the end of the day, this is a conversation about how we are so far past healthcare needing to, Medicare for all needing to be the system in place in this country. Like yesterday, we've needed Medicare for all now. It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous that when it comes to healthcare reform in this country, we are going backwards. It was not talked about during this election season. Medical costs, which are the number one it's the leading cause for bankruptcy in this country. Americans hold $200 billion in medical debt. To put that into perspective, that is the GDP of Greece, okay? The total GDP of the country of Greece is equivalent to the medical debt that we Americans possess. And yet, conversation around healthcare reform, the $1.5 billion or however much that Kamala Harris spent this past election season, there was nothing, virtually nothing about healthcare, because fuck it, I guess. So yeah, people are righteously angry, as they should be, because in the United States of America, there are a handful of rich-ass motherfuckers who profit off the suffering of the majority of people in this country, who make a lot of money because we do not have healthcare guaranteed as a human right. The healthcare industry has spent over $100 billion on lobbying. They spend all these billions on lobbying members of Congress to make sure that they keep the system rolling, because they make so much more in profit. Anyway.
We have some breaking news. CNN has obtained new surveillance video from the fatal shooting of the UnitedHealthcare CEO. And we do want to warn you that the video is, of course, disturbing.
CNN Bryn Gingras joins us. Bryn, take us through this video.
Yeah, Phil and Brianna. So we are only showing a few seconds of this video that CNN obtained, obviously, because it is very alarming to watch. Essentially, what we see in that video is the CEO, UnitedHealthcare, Brian Thompson, walking toward the hotel here behind me, and behind him comes the suspected gunman that police are still searching for. So you could see how he approaches Thompson from the back. Before then, where we freeze the video, he fires those shots at Thompson. What you do not see from these 5 seconds, and I can tell you, is that we also see someone sort of running the opposite direction. So that is something.
My mom, once upon a time, worked for Blue Cross or whatever it was called back in the 80s. And it was just like a low-paying, job at the company. And she has talked about how they were trained to make things as complicated as possible for those who were insured under that company. And that is something that still is a part of the playbook today. There's a reason why it is so incredibly difficult to navigate the healthcare industry. Like, my parents, who have worked in healthcare for a very, very long time. My mom, was a social worker. My dad was a rehabilitation doctor. They still don't understand the healthcare industry because it is intentionally designed to be as difficult to navigate as possible, because that is how they guarantee that they keep nickeling and diming people who have nothing left. That is by design.
Something, of course, that police are going to be looking into in this video, breaking it down frame by frame by frame to kind of figure out who might have witnessed this. They, of course, are going to want to talk to anyone who might have witnessed this. Again, it happened at the really front step of this entrance of this hotel, so there's possible some security there as well. And then, of course, follow the path of that gunman. As we already have learned, he flees from the scene, going down a back alley behind a theater that's across the street from the hotel where we are, and then hops on a bike where they basically lose his trail in Central Park. So again, we know that police are offering a $10,000 reward for any information that's going to help find this suspected gunman, but that manhunt is underway after this brazen shooting in Midtown Manhattan, guys.
All right, Bryn, if you can.
Okay, I know we're like 2 minutes into covering this story, but there's just so much to say. I work in the medical supplies industry. We are legally prohibited from telling clients about medical supplies that they're entitled to under their insurance because the healthcare industry lobbied the government. This is like the one issue where I guarantee every single one of you in here has a terrible experience with the healthcare industry. Whether it is your, a parent who was denied care and suffered in pain, whether it was you, whatever. Every single person in here has been fucked over by the healthcare industry. A lot of you who work in healthcare, who have stories about the difficulties of trying to provide care to people because the companies that you work for design it to be that way. It is so fucking immoral. It is scum of the earth type shit. And all of us have this experience to varying degrees. I mean, there are people in here who have probably had to GoFundMe, who have had to crowdfund to either pay their own medical costs or the medical costs of a loved one. And we're going to get to a story about how now people have been using TikTok. They are using platforms like GoFundMe and TikTok to try and raise money for cancer treatment.
You can stand by for us. I want to bring in CNN security correspondent Josh Campbell. Josh, what stands out to you in this video?
Well, all indications is this looks like a professional hit job. You look at all the characteristics that we've seen from essentially.
I mean, what do you want? Medicare for all, socialized medicine, healthcare guaranteed as a human right. It's very simple. What do I want? I want every single person to have healthcare. I want every single person to have healthcare and to be able to afford their medications. I want every single person to have what should be a guaranteed right, and that they're doing in the rest of the fucking world. It's not complicated. It's not. They want you to think it's complicated. They want you to be like, oh, well, that's impossible. We can't afford that. That'll cost. No, actually, it'll be cheaper. It will be cheaper than the system we have now. Oh, well, look at these communist countries. Medicare for all is communism. And communism is bad. These are all lies. This is decades and decades of propaganda that the for-profit healthcare industry has spent billions of dollars so that they can continue to make billions more. Seriously, this really is not hard to understand. When people go, well, what do you even want? We want health care as a guaranteed human right, as it should be. A single payer national health insurance program so that every single American is guaranteed comprehensive health care coverage. So that you have health care coverage, but also you have adequate health care coverage. Because right now, even for those of us who are lucky to have health care coverage, it's not adequate. It's like, it's fucking insane that not only are there people in this country who are just point blank uninsured, okay, but there are people who spend a lot of money on healthcare insurance and it is still not comprehensive. It is still not adequate. It is still, I guess I can't afford this treatment or this surgery even though I pay money for health insurance. All of this is unacceptable, and there is a solution to it. And I don't know how much simpler it can get. And if you think it's complicated, if you're like, well, this is just how it goes, you got to wake the fuck up, okay? You got to wake the fuck up, because this is what they want. They want you to be like, well, that's just the way that it goes. And they're like, yes, that is correct, soldier. Thank you. Now we will make sure that if anything happens to you, that you'll go into debt or just die, and you will continue to be a soldier for us as we pocket billions of dollars.
Lying in wait for the CEO to walk by. We can see on that video that Brent obtained there that he essentially is behind a Suburban, the shooter, and as the CEO walks past, you see him then step out, the gun comes up on target, and he begins to fire. There is a level of sophistication that we can tell from the shooter from that video as well, and that is because as he's firing, we know that he used a suppressor on that gun. That's to muffle the sound. That is something that someone would use, obviously, if they don't want to draw attention to a particular shooting. And you see him, racking the slide of that gun, which typically happens on its own with a semiotic 9mm style gun. But when you have that suppressor there at the end, if you don't have perhaps the proper parts or it's not properly lubed.
I'm just gonna say this, and this is simply this is just simply an observation. It is quite amazing that CEOs like Brian Thompson, who is responsible for people in this country dying or going into, massive amounts of debt, or dying and still having that debt and then that falling on their families. This is simply an observation that it is surprising this doesn't happen more often, because clearly whoever killed this CEO was very intentional in their targeting. This was not I'm going to go out and kill someone today because I feel like it. This is somebody who very intentionally targeted the CEO of the biggest health insurance company in the country. This is just simply an observation. And I think when his wife here was interviewed by NBC. Where did I put that? Is that my bookmarks? Yeah, his wife, Paulette Thompson, said that he had been receiving threats. There had been some threats, she told NBC News. Basically, I don't know, a lack of coverage. I don't know details. I just know that he said there were some people that had been threatening him. I think what's happening is that there are people in this country making the connection that a CEO who makes millions of dollars is doing so off of their pain and suffering. And it really says where we are in this country, that something like this happened.
Lubricated, that gun won't cycle, and so you see him essentially racking the slide for every round that he fires. And then also at one point, and this is what police had indicated as well before we obtained this video, that the gun had malfunctioned at one point, and you actually see him doing a clearing drill.
100% that guy was going to whistle blow and the board took him out. Well, that's a very nice narrative. That is more so something that would happen in a Hollywood film. I've read many interviews with Brian Thompson, and let me tell you that that guy absolutely was not going to whistle blow. Okay, this is not a movie starring Mark Wahlberg. That was a guy who has made millions of dollars being the CEO of the largest healthcare system in a for-profit industry that makes millions every single year. And in every interview I read of his, he has talked about how this system is good. And the way to get more people to have access to healthcare is to keep the system that we have. This is a man who's made a lot of money off of this system, and in no way would want that system to come crashing down. What on earth would he be whistleblowing? Because they are so egregiously awful in like this. I'm sorry. Okay. I just have a lot of stories pulled up, like how there's a lawsuit against UnitedHealthcare for using an AI program that they know has a 90% error rate. And that program is used to deny elderly patients care. Like, this is a company that just does evil shit. There's no like, oh, well, I thought this company was good. Something's going on here. We need a whistleblower. No, their evil is out in the open. This is the fucking healthcare industry. This is the healthcare industry. These privatized healthcare companies are so egregiously and blatantly evil. The fact that healthcare is a for-profit industry in the first place is a major problem. So no, I don't think 100% this guy was a hired assassin from the UnitedHealthcare board members because Brian Thompson was going to blow the whistle.
On that gun. And this is something that, those of us who worked in law enforcement practice on over and over, where you essentially have these so-called immediate action drills where they practice for a round not to fire. Either, it can get dislodged, there could be a double feed of ammunition, but in this case, the shooter quickly racks it, the slide gets it back up on target, continues to fire, and then finally he makes his way of escape. So he not only came there, obviously very stealthy, but he still has not been found. Reports are that he fled on a e-bicycle, which obviously within the city of New York, a place where you have tons of license plate readers that a vehicle could perhaps be picked up on. Instead, this person chose to use a bicycle, which is obviously provides a more agile means of escape there. And so again, a lot of characteristics here that show this is someone who clearly was operating with some level of sophistication. Of course, now he
was environmentally conscious.
Question comes down to motivation. That's work that's going on behind the scenes right now as well by authorities.
Bryn, what we saw in that video has been described. To actually watch it is just absolutely chilling. When you talk to your sources within the NYPD law enforcement right now, what's their sense of things in terms of how the manhunt's playing out, what resources they're actually utilizing, when they may actually find the suspect?
Yeah, I mean, every resource is being utilized at this moment, Phil. Certainly this has been, we're now about 7 hours into this investigation, and this is a major manhunt. And it does appear, of course, they came out right out of the gates saying we have a $10,000 reward, Crime Stoppers. Here are
pictures. Of course it is. Of course this is a major manhunt. And I think actually this tweet sums it up beautifully. The way that we are socialized to see violence only as interpersonal, not see state violence, policies that create poverty/kill, structural violence, institutional violence, is very deliberate. Same with panics about shoplifting versus how much corporations steal from every single one of us. Health insurance executives kill people every day by not denying them coverage, by the way. Like the same cops who are utilizing millions of taxpayer dollars to chase this eco-friendly assassin through the streets of New York are passing by people dying on the streets because they have no housing, because they are experiencing a mental health crisis, because there are no resources, because they have been deemed as vermin in a society that counts their material conditions as a personal failure. And it would be so great. It would be so great if one of these fucking media outlets would maybe talk about the bigger picture here. Obviously, this is a super hot story, right? CEO of the biggest healthcare company, gunned down in the streets of Manhattan. Crime is skyrocketing. Liberal blue cities. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever, okay? Because this to them is, here is an individual who has murdered an individual with a gun. And so, here is an individual who has murdered a very wealthy CEO with a gun. And so this is going to be a story now for the next week. And we are going to dedicate network resources. There are going to be, just politicians who are making statements about this and talking about how we will not rest until justice is served type thing. And meanwhile, these same people will not look at the reasons why somebody would gun down the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. They're not going to look at the number of Americans who die every year and they don't get a speech said about them. There's no resources that were dedicated to them in life and certainly not in death. And these people don't matter. These people do not matter.
Of this suspect at the scene here and also on the bike. We need your help. So certainly they are trying to get this wrapped up as soon as possible and find this suspect. But certainly they point to the suspect, and they made it very clear in that news conference that we heard earlier today by the NYPD that this was a targeted attack. And everything I've heard from sources, and as Josh has sort of underscored, is that this person knew what they were doing.
Yeah, no fucking shit. I'm sorry, no shit, Sherlock.
With the fact that they had that silencer. Some sources have told me they haven't seen a silencer on a handgun.
Bro, it's not even the silencer. It's not even the like, oh, they got on this bike and had the silencer and then got on, like, this was very planned. It's the fact of who they targeted. Like, why does it seem as if the rest of us have looked at this and be like, we're like, oh, yeah, no, this is pretty clear. And I'm saying this not in a way where like I expect CNN to be talking about this situation the way that I'm talking about it. I'm just more so expressing frustration and pointing out how the coverage of this is of course going to be like this. Of course, you have people on Twitter like Aaron Rupar, who's like, hey guys, I just am so disgusted by the way that people are talking about the murder of this CEO. And it's like, yeah, of course that would be what you focus on here. Of course.
Like that and forever, like calling it almost like a mob hit.
The pearl clutching.
So it's pretty startling to not only us as people who
Preston,
are,
thank you.
In just the
T-Cat,
normal
thank you for 7
people,
months.
but also to law enforcement, wondering who this person is with this level of sophistication.
Yeah, it was striking.
Who is he? I think that Kenny Clips was real pop. Kenny Clips was popping the fuck off. He had some really good tweets on this. You know, a lot of stories that are popping up like this one. Slain UnitedHealthcare CEO was sued by a firefighter's pension fund in March for insider trading and fraud. The suit alleges he sold $15 million in company stock while failing to disclose a DOJ investigation into the company. You know, what I will say is after today, having seen the number of tweets, Facebook posts, Instagram comments, etc., and the number of lawsuits that UnitedHealthcare is currently engaged in, what I have to say in conclusion as to who the identity of the assassin is it could be one of like 250 million people. Pretty much every single person that I saw today commenting on this situation is a suspect. It could literally be anybody. Yeah, just to narrow it down. Yeah, and then here's a post I saw that was like just so fucking agonizing. This was last year. I'm sharing a GoFundMe later today because apparently the only way to keep yourself alive in this capitalist shithole is to crowdsource healthcare that big insurance companies like UHC are allegedly supposed to provide. And then again, this is last year. This is a picture of Brian Thompson. You exacerbated my father's agonizing battle with cancer until his final breath, and now you're trying to throw my mom's life away. UHC, just so your CEO, Brian Thompson, can take home tens of millions of dollars this year. You all deserve to rot in hell. Kenny Clip said the pain is very real. If you're more upset about mean jokes and the suffering fueling them, you are deeply out of touch. And that is the truth. That is the truth. Like the Aaron Rupars, the people like him who are on such a fucking high horse, who are, moralizing about being respectful, et cetera, they care more about comments and jokes regarding regarding the news today than they do of the suffering that is fueling this. Where are the politicians' statements naming each of the thousands of people who die every year from lack of insulin, a drug that costs almost nothing to manufacture? No shit, murder is bad. The jokes about the United CEO aren't really about him. They're about the rapacious healthcare system that he personified, and which Americans feel real deep pain and humiliation about. People loathe our healthcare system. The pearl clutchers should ask themselves why. Here's the Facebook post from United Health Group talking about the death of Brian Thompson. There are 5.5 thousand laughing emoji reactions, up to 19,000 now, and counting. 20,000 people who went, ha, yeah, you're not going to get sympathy out of me. Hard to overstate how despised our healthcare system is. Okay, let's watch.
He states that it's
Let's talk about this little story here. This is a ProPublica investigation. So this is a story about Christopher McNaughton, who had to sue UnitedHealthcare because they decided that they were not going to pay for his treatment for ulcerative colitis. And in his fight to get the coverage that was being denied to him, it exposed the insurer's hidden procedures for rejecting claims. So what happens is people like Christopher McNaughton get to a point where they have no option but to file a lawsuit against the healthcare company that they pay money to for coverage because they are denying them care. So these are two United Healthcare workers discussing his case. This was leaked.
medically necessary treatment.
That was an internal phone call between two UnitedHealthcare workers. They're laughing about denying someone's insurance claim. We're ProPublica, a nonprofit newsroom, and we investigated. The person they're laughing about is Chris McNaughton. He was in college when he was
this is just evil. This is pure fucking evil, man.
Diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, a chronic autoimmune disease. It took him a really long time to find meds that put his disease into remission. But when he finally did, United flagged Chris's case as a high-dollar account. Ultimately, United said it wouldn't pay for his medicine because it was not medically necessary.
When I started that treatment, I think I had literally failed every other ulcerative colitis medication. So it would almost seem that it was the very definition of medically necessary and that nothing else had worked.
When United turned down Chris's claim, his medical bills were running nearly $2 million a year. So Chris did something few people ever do. He sued. He was able to get his claim filed and question United representatives under oath. He was shocked by what he learned, like that a United doctor had literally cut and pasted denial language from a nurse's notes.
That's under RN recommendation. I usually copy that and paste it if I agree.
That doctor said he's done over 10,000 denials for United, and he didn't usually look at the medical records.
Jesus.
He just signed his name. Chris's records revealed another United doctor who actually agreed with Chris's physician was ignored. United had paid for that doctor's opinion, but when the company didn't like what it saw, it buried that report. Chris also got emails and audio recordings, like the one at the beginning of this video.
It's hard to feel that they're really worried about your safety when there are emails that are celebrating the fact that your treatment was denied.
In the end, Chris's medications were paid for by insurance. United said in a statement that the company's guiding concern was always his well-being. We aren't done reporting. If you have information about insurance denials you can share, get in touch with us. And if you're interested in appealing your own denial, learn how to request your insurance claim file at propublica.org/claimmyfile.
Yeah, and again, they designed this so that it is incredibly complicated to navigate when something like care has been denied to you from your health insurance company. So this was in May 2021. A nurse at UnitedHealthcare called a colleague to share some welcome news about a problem that the two had been grappling with for weeks. United provided the health insurance plan for students at Penn State University. It was a large and potentially lucrative account. Lots of young, healthy students paying premiums in, not too many huge medical reimbursements going out. But one student was costing United a lot of money. Christopher McNaughton suffered from a crippling case of ulcerative colitis, an ailment that caused him to develop severe arthritis, debilitating diarrhea, numbing fatigue, and life-threatening blood clots. His medical bills were running nearly $2 million a year. United had flagged his case as a high-dollar account, and the company was reviewing whether it needed to keep paying for the expensive cocktail of drugs crafted by a Mayo Clinic specialist that had brought McNaughton's disease under control after he'd been through years of misery. On the 2021 phone call, which was recorded by the company, nurse Victoria Kavanaugh told her colleague that a doctor contracted by United to review the case had concluded that McNaughton's treatment was, quote, not medically necessary. Her colleague, Dave Opperman, reacted to the news with a long laugh. Now, I want to be clear. That there are, of course, a lot of medical professionals, nurses, doctors, etc., who are moral and good, and they are, some of the loudest voices speaking out against the predatory avariciousness of the healthcare industry. But there are also medical professionals like the ones in this story that that do this because it is to, they benefit from this. I knew that was coming, said Opperman. Her colleague Dave Opperman reacted to the news with a long laugh. I knew that was coming, he said. I did too, Kavanaugh replied. Opperman then complained about McNaughton's mother, whom he referred to as this woman, for screaming and yelling and throwing tantrums during calls with United. The pair agreed that any appeal of the United doctor's denial of the treatment would be a waste of the family's time and money. We're still going to say no, Opperman said. More than 200 million Americans are covered by private health insurance, but data from state and federal regulators shows that insurers reject about 1 in 7 claims for treatment. UnitedHealthcare alone rejects millions and millions of healthcare claims every single year, like tens of millions. Many people faced with fighting insurance companies simply give up. One study found that Americans file formal appeals on only 0.1% of claims denied by insurers under the Affordable Care Act. Insurers have wide discretion in crafting what is covered by their policies beyond some basic services mandated by federal and state law. They often deny claims for services that they deem not medically necessary. When United refused, and what they'll do is they will have a doctor. They will find a doctor who is in their pocket who will sign off on it not being medically necessary, right? So they'll have their evidence of like, well, no, this is what the medical professional is saying. This is not obviously the decision that the company is making. When United refused to pay for McNaughton's treatment for that reason, his family did something unusual. They fought back with a lawsuit which uncovered a trove of materials, including internal emails and tape-recorded exchanges among company employees. These records offer an extraordinary behind-the-scenes look at how one of America's leading healthcare insurers relentlessly fought to reduce spending on care, even as its profits rose to record levels. As United reviewed McNaughton's treatment, he and his family were often in the dark about what was happening or their rights. Meanwhile, United employees misrepresented critical findings and ignored warnings from doctors about the risks of altering McNaughton's drug plan. At one point, court records show, United inaccurately reported to Penn State and the family that McNaughton's doctor had agreed to lower the doses of his medication. Another time, a doctor paid by United concluded that denying payments for McNaughton's treatment could put his health at risk, but the company buried his report and did not consider its findings. The insurer did, however, consider a report submitted by a company doctor who rubber-stamped the recommendation of a United nurse to reject paying for the treatment. So this is what I'm talking about here, where most medical professionals are not are not going to be like, are not going to be doing this. They're not going to be, saying that care is not required, is not necessary for their patient because it will benefit the insurance company. But there are nurses and doctors who are company. They work for the company. And that is what they will often use. They will use those rubber stamped recommendations and go, and this is why we're denying the care. United declined to answer specific questions about the case even after McNaughton signed a release provided by the insurer to allow it to discuss details of his interactions with the company. United noted that it ultimately paid for all of McNaughton's treatments. In a written response, United spokesperson Maria Gordon Shitlow wrote that the company's guiding concern was McNaughton's well-being. Go fuck yourself, man. Like, I know that it's your job, but go fuck yourself, okay? You're going to get up there. I don't care if you're the spokesperson for United. I don't give a shit if you're Karine Jean-Pierre. You are the messenger for these morally bankrupt, evil companies. You are there speaking on behalf of them and lying. McNaughton's treatment involves medication dosages that far exceed FDA guidelines, the statement said. In cases like this, we review treatment plans based on current clinical guidelines to help ensure patient safety. But the records reviewed by ProPublica show that United had another, equally urgent goal in dealing with McNaughton. In emails, officials calculated what McNaughton was costing them to keep his crippling disease at bay, and how much they would save if they forced him to undergo a cheaper treatment that had already failed him. As the family pressed the company to back down, first through Penn State and then through a lawsuit, the United officials handling the case bristled. "This is just unbelievable," Kavanaugh said of McNaughton's family in one call to discuss his case. "They're just really pushing the envelope, and I'm surprised. Like, I don't even know what to say." Yeah, because you're used to people not being able to get to this point. It is rare that somebody who has been denied necessary treatment can even get to this point where you are on hot coals. Like, this poor guy, right? He's in college. And he has been suffering from this disease and has to go through all of this, right? Like, I always think about this. I always think about, like, that it's not just the pain and suffering and, how it can change your entire life when you are diagnosed with something, when you are born with something that affects your health, it's already like you have the challenge, the obstacles to overcome with your health diagnosis. But on top of that, you have to deal with a predatory insurance agency insurance industry that is going to do everything possible to make your life even harder, to put you through a hell when you already thought you were in hell. Getting sick in this country absolutely fucking sucks, which is why, like, in America, health is wealth. If you are a healthy person, if you are not somebody who has to constantly see doctors, who has to, be on medication, who has to seek treatment, you are a rare, lucky person. And health is wealth, and you need wealth to have health. Anyway, this just goes into the details of everything that just how excruciating this was for him. Anyway, it's a really, really long piece in ProPublica, but it's just one example, right? I have this pulled up, but it is simply one example. Here is a sketch that this guy did where he notes in the comments that obviously like he's doing a sketch, but this is all comments from people and personal anecdotes. All the examples that he uses except for like the first one.
UnitedHealthcare? What did we do this time? A PET scan? No, we barely cover human scans. Listen, sir, you can talk about this Beta Island all you want. We're not going to approve a continuous glucose monitor. It's too much monitoring. Yeah, Zofran requires a prior authorization. Well, if the chemotherapy causes nausea, then we'll talk. No, we can only approve 10 milligram tablets. And if your patient even thinks about splitting those in half, we will surprise bill the hell out of them. Okay, but the chest pain didn't end up being an emergency. I know you have evidence that says this patient needs a CT scan for cancer surveillance, but counterpoint, no. I'm just saying, I'm just saying maybe the brain tumor will go away on its own. Preventative health care. I understand you don't think the patient can be discharged home, but I just don't get the vibe that they'd rehab well, you know. So, denied. You're filing an appeal. Who taught you that? Yeah, we'll process your appeal in 6 to 8 weeks. I'm sure your patient will be just fine without insulin until then. Yeah, we can cover the pill form of that medication. Well, I think we underestimate what toddlers can do. No, ma'am, I'm sorry, you cannot skip your birth control placebo pills. Because if you don't menstruate, your belly will explode. Trust me, I'm a man speaking confidently. Ugh, diabetes? No, just no, all of it, no. Oh, you want a CPAP for this patient? When was the sleep study done? 2 full days ago? No, denied. Yeah.
Tonight.
Be a bit more timely with your communication next time. Ooh, I'm sorry, we can't approve a new battery for that pacemaker. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the heart's figured it out by now. Sure, we can approve that. It's January 1st, denied. I'm sorry, it's January. We just need some documentation that your patient still has type 1 diabetes. You need to see your primary care doctor first, and then they can refer you to a specialist who can treat your multiple open fractures. No, we changed the formulary. Yeah, he needs to fail 2 ADHD medications before we can approve the medication he's been stable on for a year. We consider that treatment experimental because it has a long name and it sounds scary.
God, it's... We laugh because it is exactly how things work in this country, where this industry, these private insurance companies, bottom line is money and more money, and therefore they will put all these hoops in front of you that you have to jump through, and then once you've jumped through all those hoops, they will go, actually, and smash you in the face with a baseball bat, and that is your reward. My parents are lifelong Republicans. For the first time in their lives, they didn't vote Republican because of health care. My mom's an evangelical racist, but she has brain cancer in Iowa on a fixed income, still doesn't qualify for Medicaid because Iowa is a privatized system. Yeah, I mean, like, it's devastating. Like, that is terrible. That is really, really sad. And unfortunately, most people in this country have, share something similar to your family's story. And it's why, like I said at the top of covering the murder of Brian Thompson, that the response to this news has, across the political spectrum, been one of, I will not shed a tear for this CEO who has directly benefited from me and my family's pain and suffering. And you can't even do, like, I saw a couple big accounts try to be like, oh, these crazy leftists. And no, it's not the crazy leftists who are the ones that are the only responders in this way, but it is the crazy leftists who have for a long time been saying Medicare for all, who have been saying healthcare is a human right, and here is how we achieve that human right.